Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor, also known as Taylor with an E, and a lot of you have been asking me how you can become a teacher in Korea like I am. So I thought for today's video, I discuss how to become a teacher with the EPIK program and give any advice I have for applying. So this video is going to be divided into 5 parts. What is the EPIK program, the requirements of EPIK, the application process, what you need to prepare to apply, and the tips I have for applying. If you want to skip to any one of those parts during any point in the video, I will leave timestamps in the description box below. So with that, let's get started. So EPIK stands for English Program in Korea and is a program affiliated with the Korean Ministry of Education. Basically, they recruit English speakers to teach English in public schools and English centers all around Korea. The main duties of this job include assisting the Korean teachers with their English classes, preparing teaching materials and lesson plans, and conducting English summer and winter camps. However, depending on your school, you may also have additional duties including conducting after-school classes, teachers' English classes, and any other extracurricular activities that involve the English language. Most positions for EPIK are for elementary school, but you could be placed at a middle or high school, an English training center, an office of education, an English experience center, or any other educational institute. Also, you could work at multiple schools or locations. EPIK contracts are yearly, so you'll be contracted to teach for 1 full year with the option to renew after that year is up. Unfortunately, because I know some of you may have this question, EPIK does not provide contracts for less than 1 year. So EPIK teachers work 8 hours per day, Monday through Friday, and are contracted to 22 teaching hours per week. Anything over those 22 hours is considered overtime, and the rest of the time during the 40-hour week is dedicated to lesson planning. Some benefits of this program include rent-free housing, medical insurance, and round-trip airfare, as well as a 1 month's pay severance bonus at the end of your contract. Salary for EPIK teachers ranges from 1.8 to 2.7 million won per month, depending on your teaching experience, with salary increases almost each year you renew with EPIK. Also, as an EPIK teacher, each year you get 26 paid vacation days, 11 sick days, and all Korean national holidays off. Sounds like something you'd be interested in? Okay, let's see if you qualify. So, in order to be eligible for the EPIK program, first and foremost, you need to be a citizen of the US, Canada, the UK, Ireland, South Africa, Australia, or New Zealand. Then, you must have also studied in that country from at least the 7th grade. According to EPIK's website, Indian citizens are also eligible to apply for EPIK, but they must meet all the other requirements that I will mention momentarily, as well as hold a teacher's license in English. Second, you must have a TEFL, TESOL, or CELTA certificate of 100 hours or more from an accredited program. Do note though that while in-class hours are not mandatory in order to be eligible for EPIK, having at least 20 is highly preferred. And some cities in Korea actually do require you to have them in order for you to teach there, like Busan for example, which requires you to have 50. Also, don't worry if you haven't completed one of those certificate courses yet. They are really easy to find and register for online, and you don't actually need to have your certificate by the time you initially apply to EPIK, though it's pretty helpful if you do. So moving on, third, you need a bachelor's degree in any field from an accredited university from one of those 7 countries mentioned. It actually doesn't have to be an English or teaching degree, though if you do have one of those, that may exempt you from needing one of the certificates I mentioned, as well as qualify you for some pay raises. More information about that can be found on EPIK's website, which I will link to in the description box below. Fourth, you need to have a clean criminal record. Both misdemeanors and felonies will disqualify you from being able to apply to EPIK. Fifth, you need to be both mentally and physically healthy. All applicants are required to fill out a self-medical check survey on their application, as well as complete a physical once they arrive in Korea. 6th, and this kind of goes without saying, you should demonstrate a good command of the English language, both written and spoken. Now, I should also note, because I've gotten a lot of questions and comments about this, I didn't find anything on EPIK's website about needing to be a native speaker in order to be eligible to apply to EPIK. So I assume if you meet all the other requirements and speak English like it's your first language, you should have no problem applying. So then, moving on to the final requirement, this is another one I didn't read specifically on EPIK's website, but I did on various recruiter websites, is that you need to be under the age of 62 in order to apply to EPIK. Now, I feel like this makes sense because I believe that is the official retirement age here in Korea. Okay, so you made it this far with me, and it seems like you meet all the requirements. So let's finally talk about the actual process of applying to EPIK. Okay, so first you will want to decide whether you want to apply for the spring or fall intake. These are the two time periods EPIK brings in teachers during the year. The spring intake is for a February start date with applications opening in August, and the fall intake is for an August start date with applications opening in February. These correspond to the dates of the school semesters in Korea. I personally recommend applying for the spring intake just because more positions are available during that intake, which also means you can meet a lot more people during orientation, and you will start at your new school when the new school year starts, versus in August, which is the start of the second semester halfway through the current school year. But each has their pros and cons, which I recommend you look further into. So the next big decision you have to make is whether you want to apply to EPIK directly or through a recruiter. Applying directly means you will send your application straight to EPIK, and any correspondence you have will be between you and an EPIK staff member, versus when applying with a recruiter, they act as more of a middleman between you and EPIK, and you will be communicating mostly with them. Also, when applying directly to EPIK, your application will be accepted and processed faster than those applications sent through recruitment agencies. You will also be assigned an EPIK coordinator after the interview stage, who will work with you to ensure your documentation and your application are prepared correctly and quickly in order for successful placement. When applying with a recruiter, even though that process does tend to slow things down a little, your recruiter will work with you from the start, even before you submit your initial application. Recruiters are basically there to give you the best chance possible of getting accepted into EPIK. Some even help you settle into Korea once you move here. You know, in my first time applying to EPIK, I made the decision to apply with a recruiter, and I'll explain why later in this video. Okay, so once deciding when and which route you will take to apply, it's finally time to proceed with the application process itself, which involves these 5 steps. 1. Submit the initial application and documents. This is done through an online application form that is then submitted to either EPIK or your recruiter. 2. The interview. So if EPIK accepts your initial application, then they will schedule you for a Skype interview. 3. Submit your final documents. If you pass your interview, it will then be time to submit hard copies of all your documents to either EPIK or your recruiter. 4. Receive your province or city placement. So once EPIK receives all your documents and everything seems to be in order, and usually after a pretty long waiting period depending on when you submitted those documents, you will then finally be notified of your placement in South Korea. And then finally, 5. Apply for your visa. This will happen once your placement is confirmed and you have received your contract and notice of appointment. So then you will apply for your visa at your nearest Korean consulate. And with that, aside from booking your ticket, you're pretty much set to come teach in Korea. So if you want a more detailed look at this whole application process, because believe me, it is a long one, I did make a video of my EPIK application timeline, as well as how much it actually cost me to apply. So when initially applying to EPIK, aside from the application itself, which I will talk about in a minute, you will also need 2 professional passport style photos that are 3 centimeters by 4 centimeters, as well as 2 letters of recommendation, both of which you will only upload the digital versions at first. Some applicants may also need a proof of English education if they meet certain criteria, such as if you are applying from South Africa or Quebec. I won't go into too much detail about what all that criteria is because this video would get really long, but I will put a link in the description box if you want to know any further information. Next, once passing the interview, you will submit hard copies of all those documents previously mentioned, along with a color copy of your passport, an apostilled criminal records check, an apostilled copy of your diploma, a set of sealed university transcripts, and a copy of your TOEFL certificate. Additionally, if you are from the UK or Australia, you will also need an apostilled copy of your birth certificate. For more detailed information on each of these documents, check out the required documents page on EPIK's website. Again, I will put the link in the description box below. Okay, so now that I've gone over the various documents you need, let's take a closer look at what you need to prepare for the application. So EPIK's application is divided into 3 parts: personal information, personal essays, and sample lesson plan. So the personal information section is pretty self-explanatory. This is just where you fill in information about your name, your passport info, your contact info, your teaching experience, your educational background, your work history, and other stuff like that. Next, in the personal essay section, this is where you will type out 3 different personal essays, about 250 to 300 words each, answering 3 different prompts. Number 1, why do you want to teach EFL and why do you want to teach in Korea? Number 2, explain your teaching philosophy. And number 3, share your thoughts on encountering cultural differences. Finally, you will have to create a sample lesson plan using EPIK's provided structure, as well as include example PowerPoint slides and worksheets that you will use in the lesson you make. If you don't know how to create a lesson plan, don't worry, this will definitely be covered in your TOEFL course, and there are so many resources about it on YouTube and online. Alright, so now that you have an idea about what the EPIK program is and how to apply, now I want to provide some tips on applying. First and foremost, and you will hear everyone say it, get your application in as early as possible. This will benefit you in all parts of the application process as EPIK goes by a first come, first served basis. Also, this gives you a higher chance of getting your preferred city or province placement that you listed on your application. To help you get your application in as early as possible, I highly recommend starting the process of getting your 2 letters of recommendation as soon as you make the decision that you want to apply. Also, try to be as organized as possible with what documents you need and when, as some may take longer than others to acquire. Finally, it's probably also in your best interest to complete your TOEFL certification in advance as well. Not only is it one less stress during the whole application period, but it also helps you create a better lesson plan for your initial application. The next tip I have is to apply with a recruiter, especially if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed with all you need to do in order to apply for EPIK. Personally, a big reason I applied with a recruiter my first time around was just for the peace of mind. The EPIK process is long, intimidating, and can be overwhelming for first-time applicants. You know, when I applied for the first time, I had no idea where to start, what I was doing, probably just like some of you watching this video. I'm also a perfectionist, and teaching in Korea was something I really wanted to do. So I knew when I first applied to EPIK, I wanted to submit the best application I could and do it right the first time around. And my recruiter, Greenheart Travel, was everything I needed and beyond. They were there to answer any and all questions I had. They guided me through the whole application process with the utmost detail, gave me feedback on my personal essays and my lesson plan, kept me on track with due dates and submissions, and really just made sure I was prepared for every step up until I landed in Korea. By applying through Greenheart, I just got an invaluable support system of both staff and other alumni that just made the whole EPIK application process so much easier. Plus, even though going through a recruiter slowed down the processing of my application slightly, I still got my first choice in city placement because I got my application into Green Heart early enough. So moving on, my third tip is to have those 20 or more in-class TEFL certificate hours. It just makes your application stronger, especially if you don't have any other teaching experience. Plus, it will give you a leg up over those other candidates who only have online hours. My next tip is to research online. Honestly, when doing the application my first time around, I was really unsure of myself when writing my personal essays and my lesson plan. Partly because I hadn't finished my TEFL course yet, so it really helped to look at a bunch of different examples and read different tips online. It just gives you a better idea of what EPIK is looking for. Fifth, make your lesson plan for the school level you want to teach. Sometimes, but not always, offices of education do take this into account when deciding what type of school or schools to put you with. Sixth, make sure that your letters of recommendation follow the provided structure and guidelines, or that could delay your application process. For example, the first time I applied, one of my references attached a business card to the recommendation letter in place of the letterhead, but the name on the business card didn't match the name she had signed with on the actual letter. So I had to go back and have her change and update her name on the letter in order for me to officially submit it. Luckily, she was able to get me a new letter within the week because we lived in the same city, but what if that wasn't the case or she took longer to get back to me? That could have really affected my chances of getting the city I wanted to live in or even getting placed at all. And last but not least, my final tip is to proofread. I mean, you are applying to be an English teacher after all, so it's pretty important that you do that. Plus, you won't be able to edit or modify your application after submitting it. Alright, so I hope that was helpful and gives you guys who are wondering a better idea about the EPIK program and how to apply. Note though that this is just a general overview, and if you do want a more detailed or comprehensive look about EPIK and about the application process, I highly recommend you check out EPIK's website or those of various recruiters. If you have any questions about what I talked about, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll try to answer them to the best of my knowledge. I hope you guys have an amazing, wonderful day, and I will see you next time.